Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special episode 11 of Just One More Podcast. We've got John from My Brain on Games here with us. So, how are you doing, John?
I'm doing fine. I'm a little tired, but I'll pull through.
That's I hear that you've got quite a log of games to go over.
Somebody's been leaking my information. This must be that 17-year-old hacker.
Yeah, I mean that's I just couldn't just be done with leaking all the stuff about GTA 6 and was just like, you know what, I'm gonna reach into some of these smaller shows and see what else I can get out there. He didn't really pay for much of the information. Like I was trying to get more money out of him, but he just didn't want those deals. As far as gaming goes, well, I guess before we get into that, I'm Jeff from Just One More Level, and didn't do a whole lot of gaming this week, which, you know, on a couple of these episodes is kind of.
I mean, that's par for the course at this point for you, at least, and of course, par for the course for me as I played a kind of a baker's dozen. Not quite, half dozen games, but this is a big episode. We've been alluding to it for a while. It's the lead up. We finally played the Star Ocean, the Divine Force demo.
Yeah, and I figure we could probably save that for the big hurrah for the bigger portion.
You don't want to talk about it?
I mean, I do. But as far as the games that you played, I didn't really get much. I got to the final chapter of Killzone Shadowfall, which is the game is taking me a little bit longer than I had anticipated, just with everything going on.
And
then of course,
as you said last time, like the quality of it, it probably again speaks towards the quality of it, where it took you like a week to maybe do like a chapter or two chapters.
Yeah. I probably could have finished it, but, well, actually I'm for sure that I could have beaten Shadowfall before the Star Ocean Divine Force demo came out, but I did get a little bit of trophy goggles on, because the last chapter, there's 3 potential trophies to get from that. So I was like, okay, well, I'm not necessarily going for trophies, but this seems easy enough. I just need to take out 20 soldiers, not be spotted, and finish the chapter. So I was like, I can probably do that. But the controls of the game really make it much more of a challenge than it should be. But, with that being said, I am at the final chapter. I just need to push through and just get that game done and over with. I'm not. I need to remind myself I'm not hunting for trophies for that game. But you said it's 6 games that you've played over the last week. So anything notable from those 6?
Well, yeah. So I've got a spate of shoot 'em ups, and I'll just go ahead and group those all together. So in that case, I'll start with To the Moon and Beyond. This was the other free NASA game. I think last week I talked about that space station investigations game.
Oh, yeah.
That was a first-person kind of interactive experience, where you take on the role of an astronaut in the International Space Station. This is much different. This is a card game.
Okay. Well, like a trading card, like kind of like a Magic the Gathering type thing,
just kind of like a board game, card game sort of thing.
Okay.
So to start off with, it was free to download, same sort of thing as the other one, and it's a relatively easy completion. It's a little more difficult than the Space Station Investigations, air quotes, game, but this one is actually a proper game. It was the actual gameplay is preceded by a lengthy tutorial. And it's sort of like, whenever you get a new board game and you're gathered around with your family or your friends, and we got to go over the instructions. And, of a certain type of board game, they're usually long, complicated instructions. It really takes you a couple games before you understand what you're doing or you have the confidence to know that you're doing it correctly. And this is the same sort of thing. There was a fairly lengthy, like 5-minute tutorial section before the actual gameplay was turned over to me. And even then, those first couple of games, I wasn't so sure of what I was doing. And then eventually it clicked and really felt like I got it. But basically, you are put in charge of operating NASA over a 4-year period. So basically, there's like 4 sections, 4 turns, although the turns are, take some time. You have a set budget at the beginning of every year, and there are cards that you can buy. There's 2 rows, so there's 2 types of cards. There's actual projects that contribute to your mission objectives. You have a variety of mission objectives where you have to get like 3 out of 3 of this color or 4 out of 4 of this color, and that translates to like building a spacesuit or building a rover. So the win condition for this is you complete all those mission objectives by the end of year 4. Whenever you purchase a project, like I said, it contributes to that, but then it also increases the budget you will have for the following year. So it is imperative you keep funding this stuff, of course, because that's how you win. And then the other type of cards are research cards, and those essentially reduce the cost of project cards. You can only have 10 research initiatives you have going up on the space station or on the International Space Station. And like I said, if you have one that matches a project that's in that row, that card will be discounted. And then there's every now and then, like every couple of times you buy a card or throw a card away, there are catastrophes or sometimes helpful surprises, just random occurrences. They could be pretty annoying, and just annoying like in how painful they were. Like I can think of buying very expensive project cards, like cards that maybe took like a half to a quarter of my total budget, but they were good investments because they contributed to like every mission objective. So I got like 1 point for every mission objective, and of course they increased my budget substantially for the following year. And I can think of like specific catastrophes that happened, like, okay, I just purchased this, and then like a couple instances later it's like, oh, that card got destroyed before I could get any benefit from it. It's like, oh, that may just tank this whole playthrough.
And so it's kind of, I mean, it sounds like it's like a business simulator, like a management type of game.
You could think of it like that, since you have a budget and you have these goals, and of course you're researching stuff. But it's similar to the Space Station Investigations. I think I played it for 1 to 2 hours. Did multiple playthroughs. An actual game is probably like 10 minutes, 5 to 15 minutes, somewhere in that range. So I mean, it's pretty quick once you get a hang of things. Yeah. And it has varying difficulties: easy, medium, hard. So there's some good replayability, and like I said, just going through easy completion. A little more difficult than the other one because there is some randomness associated with some of the achievements, but I was able to get a lot out of it in one session.
So I don't know if you've already said it or not, but so the Investigations game was exclusive to Xbox. Did you say that this one was also exclusive to Xbox?
So this one actually did come out on Android and iOS devices. Like I think this maybe actually debuted in like 2020, and it just this year got ported to Xbox. But this one is not exclusive in the same way Space Station Investigations is. And it makes sense, since this is like a card game or a board game. It's much better suited to a touchscreen than that Space Station Investigations game is. They could port it to phones, but you'd have the on-screen thumbsticks, or you'd have to use an external controller.
And that for me, it for the most part, like whenever I'm at work, since we both have Game Pass Ultimate with our Series X's, like having Game Pass on my phone, like I always want to, like whenever I'm at work or I'm away from my house, like being able to have my phone and the ability to play Game Pass games on my phone is always nice. The problem is that unless it's like touch, like designed for touch or enabled or touch enabled or something like that, having that like on screen uh, virtual controller just really gets in the way of everything, and I just cannot. I just don't enjoy playing games that way. So
Yeah, I still have not tried anything Game Pass on my phone. I thought about it. Basically, whenever we go anywhere, I have my Switch packed just in case there's, if we go anywhere like visiting family or whatnot. It's not like, hey, I'm going to the grocery store. I may have a chance to play the Switch. But I mean, if we go someplace visiting family or whatnot, we're going to be there for an extended period of time. It's like, okay, well, there may be some downtime and I can play a game or something. I always pack my Switch, and then sometimes I'm always thinking like, well, I ought to try something on Game Pass on my phone. I just haven't yet, but this would probably be, if this is, well, I guess this isn't even Game Pass. This is just a free-to-play game.
Yeah.
If this is something that you could play over xCloud, I guess it is, this would probably be a good game to play.
because like there's a like I've tried a couple games that are like touch enabled through Game Pass on my phone, like I think golfing with friends or golf with friends or something like that. I've played that, and it handles pretty well, but like I said, it's touch enabled. I've tried some of the other stuff that's not touch enabled, and like I said, just having that virtual controller on screen, like my thumbs are in the way of everything going on, and it's just too much of a cramped and cluttered experience that I just don't find enjoyable.
Yeah, which that's the nice thing about, I think, the new Xbox controllers. They're Bluetooth enabled, so you could just pair it to your phone. And again, that's the sort of thing I think about, like, okay, well, if I do dabble with that, do I need to go ahead and like pack my Xbox controller and my Switch?
Well, I mean, over the last week, a lot of JRPGs hit Game Pass. So
yeah, I don't know if I'll play it, but I did download Ni no Kuni.
well, it is by far like the first game. I'm so glad that it did get the remaster, and now I'm glad that it's on Game Pass because more people need to play that game. It is such a phenomenal game. In fact,
I've got the PS3 copy that I just never played over years, and I wouldn't be surprised if I have purchased the remastered copy too. I know following Warrior 64, it seemed like there for a minute, like the remastered version would go on Walmart for like $5.99, and it'd sell out like instantly. It's like they had one copy, and they're just like, oh, we got another copy. Let's put it back on $5.99.
Yeah, let's get this thing out there.
But that is one where it's like, okay, I've been kicking myself for not playing it for all this time, and maybe now it's on Game Pass. It's like, okay, well, this is another chance for me to either play it or ignore it. But speaking of playing things, I have other things drawing my attention now. So who knows if I will. One of those things is Guwange. So of course I'll start off with the correction. Last week I called it Guwanage, and no, it's not Guwanage. It's not Guwang, as I saw some people on an old GameFAQs forum thread referring to it as Guwang. No, it's actually,
it makes sense. It makes sense that people would mispronounce it. It's not exactly a familiar word or term.
No. Yeah, I mean, I think it is just straight Japanese. So whenever you're looking at it from an English point of view, it's like, okay, Guwanage, Guwang. But no, it is pronounced Guwange. And so new developments from this week compared to last week. I did experience the two other modes this version offered. This had the original arcade release, which is all I had played last week. I think I just got like a playthrough in. And, this is an arcade shoot-'em-up. This is a bullet hell shoot-'em-up. And, so it's like a 25-minute playthrough. And that's one of the nice things about a lot of home conversions of these shoot-'em-ups or these bullet hell shoot-'em-ups, specifically the cave ones, which I've played a lot of here in the last couple of years, is that you have unlimited continues. So even if you're not great, and I'm by no means great or really good at anything, I at least can see the game through to the end. It may take lots of virtual quarters, but I can do it.
That's it's one of your favorite like subgenres or genres of games. I mean,
yeah, I love shoot 'em ups.
Shmups.
So in addition to the arcade mode, there was an arranged version of the arcade mode, and I can't really tell what was different. Looking on Wikipedia, it looked like it was just basically a little bit harder in the end game. So not a drastic difference, but there was an Xbox 360 specific arranged mode, which was vastly different, and it was really fun. Like it is definitely like the highlight of this game, or at least this version. So it's a bullet hell shoot 'em up. So normally or I guess in this game, it's got a pretty simple mechanic. You just have the A button to shoot, or just one button shoots, and you can, let me see, you hold it, you tap it, and you get two different actions. One of them causes your Shikigami to come out, and the Shikigami is like a spirit that's bound to you. So normally you're like throwing kunai or throwing your projectiles. There's one of three characters, so they're all like, one's shooting a bow and arrow, one's throwing kunai. Normally, you're just shooting that, but whenever you summon your Shikigami, in addition to you throwing your projectile weapon, then that Shikigami is throwing grenades. They're lobbing grenades. And in addition to that, whenever your Shikigami touches enemy bullets, the bullets slow down. So being a bullet hell shoot 'em up, there's hundreds of bullets on screen at any given time. So having them slow down the bullets is very helpful.
That's a bullet hell, and there's hundreds of bullets. Yeah, that's definitely a hellacious thing to be dealing with.
Yeah, and I always, up until I played like Death Smiles and a couple other bullet hell shmups a couple of years ago, I always had this impression of bullet hell shoot 'em ups as like, okay, impossibly tough, like the most hardcore of the hardcore. But then actually playing them, I realized, well, actually in most of them, your hitbox, the character's hitbox, is like literally a pixel. So you really do have a fighting chance of dodging the bullets and staying alive, as long as you just keep that in mind. Like, okay, it's only if they touch the center of your character that you actually take damage or die, if it's like a one-hit kill game. And so, of course, having the bullets slow down in the arcade mode is helpful, but in the arranged mode, this Xbox 360 specific arranged mode, the script is kind of flipped. Now, the Shikigami is summoned by just holding down the right trigger, and in doing so, it basically turns it into a twin stick shooter. So your left stick you're using to control your character, and the right stick you're using to move your Shikigami around. And I guess before, in the actual arranged game, your Shikigami would move with your character. Your character would slow down, so he's not moving as drastically as the Shikigami was. But now in this version, it's essentially a twin stick shooter. And, there's no reason not to have your Shikigami out there, so you're just holding the right trigger for the whole game, like the whole 30-minute session. And the scoring mechanic is different. Again, with these shoot-em-ups, it's not so much about surviving or getting to the end. It's really about taking advantage of the game's unique scoring mechanics. And these cave-developed shoot-em-ups, they all have unique scoring mechanics. In this specific mode, your Shikigami, whenever it kills enemies, and you have a chain going, those enemies turn to coins, and as you collect coins, they become more and more valuable. So you're incentivized to keep like one entire game length chain going. You basically want to keep the chain going the entire game. So basically, you need to continue hitting enemies with your bullets or with the Shikigami. You can't let up, because if the chain dies, then your coin counter restarts. And then additionally, whenever your Shikigami defeats an enemy, whenever it kills an enemy, if there are any bullets on screen from that enemy, they also turn to coins. So there's kind of a risk-reward going on where you're incentivized as well to, well, let me let the enemy fire a little bit at me, get some bullets on the screen, because whenever I destroy them, those are all going to turn into points, basically. And yeah, like I said, it's just a real novel twist, like a complete change to how the game is played. Both from the actual mechanics of playing the game, but then also the scoring mechanics. They're somewhat similar, but it's just taken to the extreme in this twin stick shooter, essentially, and just really fun. It's much easier because you just have your Shikigami out the whole time. Then at that point, it's really more about, it's easy to stay alive. At that point, it's more about just keeping the combo alive. It took me an attempt or two to basically be able to keep the combo alive up until the final boss, but whenever I did, it's like, okay, this is insane. This is awesome.
So it kind of, looking at shoot 'em ups, it's almost, you could almost draw kind of a comparison to like puzzle games, because it's like, trying to get the best score that you can, and just figuring out what patterns to implement and what to avoid, and
Exactly.
kind of like you said, with at least with this game, and just keeping that chain going throughout the entire stage, and just figuring out the best possible route for that to happen. Sounds very much like a puzzle game.
Yeah, and in a lot of ways, shoot 'em ups are, do have a lot in common with puzzle games. Whether you're talking about like old school shoot 'em ups where it is just pattern recognition, like, okay, I'm gonna learn this pattern, I'm gonna die a little bit farther than I did last time, but I picked up something else, or these more modern day like bullet hell shoot 'em ups where the focus has shifted from just surviving or getting to the end to like, okay, we're really taking high score chasing to the extreme, and we're coming up with unique scoring mechanics to do that.
Yeah.
But speaking of more old school shoot 'em ups, the other shoot 'em up I purchased a couple weeks ago was Strania the Stella Machina, and that is a shoot 'em up more inspired by like old school shoot 'em ups of like the 80s or 90s, and additionally the actual game itself was inspired by anime mecha of the 1980s, so it has a distinct personality about it. And in comparison to Guwange, which has a kind of caves, pixelated art style, Guwange came out in '99, so it has some real nice like Dreamcast era, PlayStation 2 era, pixelated graphics, and of course that game is set in like a Japan of hundreds of years ago. Strania, on the other hand, is of course inspired by anime mecha, so it's going to be more futuristic. But it similarly does have a Dreamcast style presentation, visual style, but more realistic graphics. Of course, realistic graphics according to the power of a Dreamcast equivalent platform.
I mean, Shenmue is fairly, realistic. I mean, it's a very realistic take on how people look and talk and how they interact with people. So,
True life.
The Dreamcast had the power. It had, there's a lot of potential there. It just, took a lot of money back then.
Yeah. So Strania, it was developed by G Revolution, G-Rev. They're a smaller Japanese developer, and they were founded by ex-Taito staff in the late '90s, early 2000s. They're formed by developers of shoot 'em ups, and of course that's essentially what they do as G-Rev. G-Rev still exists. The name may not sound familiar, but I think you have played Senko no Ronde on the Xbox 360, that early like kind of quasi-fighting shoot 'em up fusion game.
Yeah.
So that's G-Rev. They made that. That came out early in the 360 life cycle, and of course it was a port of an arcade game. Strania was an arcade game as well. It was developed like basically concurrently for the arcades and 360, and it came out in like the late 2000s, like 2008, 2009, something like that. And I haven't had a chance to play much of it. I've gone through and I've gotten good enough to get through like 3 of the game stages. I think it's maybe like 7-stage game or something like that. And there's like 2 pathways, 2 storylines. So I guess in total there's like 12 stages, broken up in 6-stage chunks or 7-stage chunks, something like that. And it is kind of an old school shoot 'em up. It's not a bullet hell shoot 'em up by any means, but I'm piloting this mech. I'm picking up different weapons, powering up those weapons, and just trying to survive. It's tough. I can take like 2 or 3 hits, and I only have 1 life. I can
one life to live.
I can adjust the settings, and I will probably this week. I'll adjust the settings just so I can get through the game and at least see it through to the end, and then maybe continue trying to like get to the end or set a high score or something myself. But it seems pretty cool.
So just really, really diving into the shmups for the last week.
Yeah, and so I guess using that as a segue, I'll get into the last 3. What?
Man.
3?
Like somehow not only did you play all of this, but also found time for Star Ocean, which we'll get to.
Yeah, I mean Star Ocean demo is like hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yeah. But
But anyways, the last three I'll talk about, they'll be pretty quick too. There are some Eastasiasoft published shoot 'em ups, and I don't know if you're familiar with Eastasiasoft, but they put out a bunch of like shovelware on the modern day platforms that is basically like achievement slash trophy shovelware crap. And this stuff is pretty much that. Two of the three games actually, I say, go beyond that, but for the most part, I saw this and I was like, okay, well, I've been on a shoot 'em up kick here, playing a couple of these last weeks. This triple pack was on sale, so they basically come out to be $1 a piece. They're all an easy completion. I basically got all the achievements within 30 minutes, and not by doing anything real tough or anything. I'll start out with the first one. They're all, I guess, let me back up a bit. They're all published in 2020, at least on the Xbox. They were ported by Eastasiasoft. They were developed by Panda Indie Studio, which I'm sure is probably just like a division of Eastasiasoft or something. Project Starship was the first one that came out. It came out in like February. The other two came out in March and then April of 2020. Project Starship, it's easily the worst of the bunch. It's a shoot 'em up. It has some really awful audio clips, like just incredibly terrible audio clips.
Like, is it so bad it's good, or is it just
Kinda.
bad?
No, yeah, I mean, it's kind of just like, okay, what is going on? Like, is this purposeful? And it kind of seems like it was purposeful. The graphics aren't that great. It looks, it's of like a Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis era graphics. But the it's very simple. It definitely looks just like, hey, my first game or my first shoot 'em up sort of thing.
We had a $5 budget for this.
Yeah, pretty much. Hey, kudos to somebody for getting out there, actually making a game, getting it published, but not much more to say about that. The next game in the triple pack was Red Death, and it's a much higher quality game. The visual styles changed, the styles changed. Yeah, the first one, Project Starship, it's more of a bullet hell style game. Red Death, the second one, it's much more akin to a game on the NES. Like it is straight up a NES shoot 'em up, and it's honestly of the quality of a NES shoot 'em up. Like it's pretty good. It had a unique visual style. It looks like a NES game, but it has this like unique red color palette. Of course, Red Death, and it actually had story. There were some story interludes, but whenever you start a mission or end a mission, and like surprisingly vulgar dialogue. They're dropping tons of curse words like F-bombs. But the gameplay, go ahead.
They had to, draw people in, some way. I mean,
yeah. And they could have just drew people in with the quality of the game itself. Like I said, it was surprisingly good after coming off of Project Starship and being like, okay, this game's garbage. I can't wait to see these other two, and then being like, oh wait. I mean, this is actually a game that could stand on its own. I mean, there's not a huge market for people who are interested in shoot 'em ups, least of all just like a basic NES shoot 'em up, but it's quality. It's actually pretty good.
I mean, maybe they were looking at it as, they needed, maybe they were also surprised when they were like, hey, this is actually not that bad. Maybe we didn't need to have the vulgar language, but we'll go ahead and leave that in there because it's already there. But maybe they were surprised too.
Yeah, I'd be interested. I haven't done any research really on them, but I'd be interested to go back and see. Okay, when was like the actual development periods of these three games? Because I could understand if Project Starship truly was like one of the first things this Panda Indie Studio did, and then after a couple years, just getting better and just learning some tricks and just accumulating knowledge, that they then put out something like Red Death. Of course, seeing it on the Xbox is like, okay, well, there's just like a 1 month period from the release of these two games, and they didn't go from making Project Starship and then making Red Death in the next month. Again, unless I guess there could be different people actually working on these games. Two completely different people or teams would make sense, but I digress.
So you said that there was 3 games in this pack?
Yes, yeah, and so the last game of this pack, this old triple pack that's on sale currently, is Null Drifter, and if the quality is improving from 1, 2 to 3, this game is actually awesome. Like, no joke, this game I've continued playing beyond just getting the achievements. The other two, I got the completion. I was like, okay, Project Starship, I'm done with. Red Death, I could see myself coming back to. It's tough. I didn't get to the end or anything, but I could see myself coming back and trying to play more of that. See how the story progresses. Null Drifter, this game's actually really good.
Well, I mean, and they're all from the same development studio, right?
Yeah, Null Drifter.
Ish.
Yeah, Null Drifter, I'm not sure. I think it just has some like in-game developed by screens, because it's set more in like a computer terminal. It has some self-proclaimed 1-bit graphics, so it's really just like it's just like black and white. Or as you play through the game, you unlock all these different color palettes, and they're all just like 2-color color palettes. So there's like a Game Boy color palette, or there's like an old computer screen like black and green color palette. So
is there a Virtual Boy?
I know
Red.
Basically, there's a Virtual Boy color palette too.
Because I know you were talking about Red Death being, pretty much primarily being red. So I was like, well, maybe they're trying to, replicate the Virtual Boy experience.
Yeah, but Null Drifter, it's a twin-stick shooter, and it's the same sort of thing as like Geometry Wars, where you're just in a confined arena. In this game, it's just the screen. The screen is the arena, and enemies are spawning in from the sides, and there's all sorts of different enemies, so they have different attack patterns or whatnot. You can shoot any direction, twin stick, and then you can dash. Whenever you dash into an enemy, the enemy is destroyed, and it also gives you like a second of invincibility. And then there's a refresh rate on that dash. You can't just dash nonstop. But as you play, you're collecting, as you destroy enemies, you collect the coins they leave behind. And then whenever you lose all your health and you die and you go back to the main menu before you start the game, you can actually spend those coins to unlock upgrades, like basically give yourself more health, give yourself a better weapon, give yourself a faster fire rate. And in that regard, it's a lot like Mars Matrix on the Dreamcast. Mars Matrix on the Dreamcast, of course, it's a port of an arcade shoot-'em-up, a bullet hell shoot-'em-up that Capcom published. But in that Dreamcast port, it's the same sort of thing where, okay, this game's tough as heck, but as you play, you're going to generate your score, and then that score gets translated into a currency that you can then feed into power-ups or upgrades or just like level skip sort of stuff that eventually, as you progress, you're really progressing in two ways. One, you're just getting better at the game because you're learning the patterns, you're learning where to be or what to shoot, how to shoot, but you're also actually improving yourself. And so it's the same sort of thing with this game, and it's really addictive. It's like an RPG sort of character progression system. It's, hey, I'm getting better, so now I can defeat better and stronger enemies, and I want to keep that treadmill going. But like I said, I've actually played this well beyond what was needed for getting
more
the
shmups,
achievement completion. Like,
that's just
actually a
really
really good game.
The shmups. So that was what, five shmups and then a card game. So
yeah, Guange, Strania, the Stella Machina, and then the Eastasiasoft Panda Indie Studio Trio, Project Starship, Red Death, and Null Drifter. And then yes, the card game To the Moon and Beyond.
So
now the moment you've all been waiting for
the couple of people who actually listen to the podcast.
Yeah, the moment I've been waiting for, as I said in the dead time when I was disconnected, it's like, well, okay, so the demo actually released in New Zealand on the 19th, on Monday, so I switched my console's region to download it a day early, and so I played it Monday, and I've been wanting to hammer it out with you since then, and of course it's Saturday now, so I'm sure it's been the same for you, where it's like, okay, got a lot to talk about the demo, and interested to talk about it, but got to keep it bottled up till Saturday.
I do have, I know it wasn't really meant to be a recurring thing, but I do have a kudos for it after we're done talking about Star Ocean, because there's a kudos in there that I want to give out. But I also did the same thing. I switched, and of course Corey was like, you couldn't wait one more day. And I was like,
it's like, no, John did it. I gotta keep up with him.
for some reason, despite not really having my experiences with the Last Hope, and then just how integrity and faithlessness got
Well, I
just
mean,
bashed on by everybody, and uh,
yeah, I mean, I guess background, like, is Star Ocean 3 Till the End of Time, is that really the only one you've sunk time into?
I've played the PSP ports of which, as we found out, Second Evolution. For anybody who has Second Evolution, physical for the PSP, protect that copy, because apparently that is just getting more expensive. But
Yeah, I think we saw that at what FTW game come
yeah,
even prior in their collector's case, and we're both like,
it,
wait a minute, why is that
it's
game like $80
almost
or
three
whatnot?
times the price of the first port, or the first departure.
Yeah, yeah, it's like, is the first one as much? It's like, no, for some reason it's just the
So
second one.
I did play. I played through the PSP ports of First Departure and Second Evolution, which those were more fantasy based, more, um, you know, not well. I guess that's one issue, or one caveat with Star Ocean, is that I think as the series has progressed, it's gotten to realize, oh yeah, we're supposed to be a sci-fi fantasy, not just a fantasy. But till the end of time is definitely the game that I like the most out of the franchise. I think it's just it's an incredible game. They fit so many different things into, I like the fighting game that was packed in. Like I think just overall it's one of my like all time favorite, like top 20, maybe even top 10 RPGs of all time. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I remember, whenever we met in high school, it was of the time that game came out. And I think that's one of the things I remember about you is, okay, you're real big into that. Because I remember, from my point of view, having a GameCube, I was real big into Tales of Symphonia, and then reading one of the facts on GameFAQs. They were talking about, hey, if you really like Tales of Symphonia, you need to try Star Ocean Till the End of Time on the PS2. It's the same sort of thing,
Yeah.
like action RPG.
a pretty sizable party, good personalities, a couple grating characters, but I mean, what RPG doesn't have a grating character or two? So yeah, I played a little bit of Last Hope, and just immediately, like, just the vibe, it just wasn't clicking with me. And then
Yeah, again, something we talked
yeah,
about on that trip up to Claremore and Pryor last week. It's like, well, how much of it did I actually play? You can't judge the whole game on just a couple hours
I
whenever it's so
mean,
long.
to a degree, I suppose, but and then with
Yeah. All I'm saying is it's due a second chance. It's due another look. Of course, in Integrity and Faithlessness, neither of us have played other than
Yeah.
just checking it out. That's due a
Yeah.
first chance.
And so
from us.
the series has been kind of in rocky waters with the last couple of releases, but for some reason the Divine Force just, for some reason, it has me super excited.
Well, yeah, I mean, the debut trailers of the game made it seem like it's something
Yeah.
much different from the other Star Ocean games. Like, seems like it's taken a page from, like, from my point of reference, like Final Fantasy 12 and then Xenoblade Chronicle games, where it's like, hey, big
Yeah.
open world, you're gonna travel around.
So I did what you did with the Series X. I switched over the region, downloaded the demo, started playing it. But I did also download it to the PS5 after it hit the PlayStation Store, just so I could kind of see if there was anything different between the two. Played them both on the graphic setting.
Oh, not performance?
I mean, I did play a little. Well, I did play the demo again on the PS5 in performance mode, just to see what those differences were. Both versions, or both. Yeah, I get. Well, both versions with the graphic setting versus the performance setting. In some areas, it still was choppy, as far as like the quickly moving the camera around and flying around and stuff. But like, I
yeah,
enjoyed
so
it.
I was actually, yeah, I was actually very disappointed whenever I first booted it up and it prompted me, do you want to play this game in performance mode or graphic visual mode? I was like, okay, wait a minute. I understand this is coming to like the, PS4 and Xbox One as well, but I'm playing on a Series X. Like, is there not like a native Series X or PS5 version of this game where, like, we have the most powerful consoles?
Yeah.
This game already doesn't look that great. Like, but you're still saying I have to make a choice. So that was very disappointing for me initially. Like, okay, come on, really?
And
I thought we're past that.
Even on frame, like with it focusing on frame rate, there was still, as I referenced to, there were still moments that the game had issues to keep up with, like the camera movement if I was going too fast or whatever. So even with it focusing on frame rate and not graphics, I was still running into with the.
Yeah, I mean, I always play it on performance mode. Like, if a game gives me the option, I'm always going to want a better frame rate because the game is going to play better and just look better, even if the visuals are maybe like, I don't know, 10% worse. But same sort of thing. It's like, okay, I'm playing on the Xbox Series X and you're playing on both Xbox Series X and PS5 on performance mode, or I guess PS5 on performance mode. And the fact that we still have some issues. It's not terrible. It's not bad by any means, but it's just like,
and
really?
I know, like Square Enix made a post on their website about how the demo is an edited. It's basically the complete game, which, that also has me a little concerned about a couple things. So it's basically the complete game, but the reason that like the save files and stuff don't carry over is because it's an edited first chapter of Raymond's story, which leads me to believe that maybe some of the initial I don't know if you had any issues with the dialogue or not.
Yes. Yeah, let me look at my notes. This demo soured me on the characters almost immediately.
I really don't know how to frame it.
And I guess, and so from my perspective, like, the demo soured me on the characters almost immediately. That's kind of to be expected. That's honestly what I want. This to me seems like a PS2 RPG. Raymond seems like the typical like protagonist twerp. Yeah. There's a needlessly bosomy, sexualized android, and like the dialogue is just really bad. Like just really, really bad.
It's awful.
But at the same time, it's kind of like with Shenmue 3. It's like, okay, all I wanted from Shenmue 3 was I just wanted a Dreamcast game. I wanted a Dreamcast sequel to Shenmue 1 and 2. That's what we got. For this, it's like, hey, I want the open world style, like exploration and that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, if it's just a PS2 JRPG 2, that's what I've been wanting. Give me those PS2 era JRPGs.
I can definitely look past graphics. Graphics are not what sells me on a game. Like, I want the gameplay to be the main focus. Like, it's a game. I want the gameplay to be good. What I was running into is that the character interactions and the dialogue were so jarring at times that I got just fixated on some of the, like when the escape pod crash lands, and it's like, okay, well, it was a one and done use. It's a useless pod now. But then he meets up with Letitia, I think is Letitia.
Letitia.
Yeah,
and her
Albert, which I like. I like Albert. I like his personality. He's very just no nonsense, very matter of fact. He doesn't give a shit who anybody is. He is there to protect the princess. Cool.
And I got to interject here because it shouldn't come as a surprise, but it is maybe a little disappointing. This game does the same thing every Star Ocean game I've played has done up to date. it starts off with the presentation being like, okay, this is going to be a big sci-fi JRPG game, and then you get stranded on like a medieval era planet. As soon as you crash land, you hop out of there, you encounter these people. They're like, oh, there's some monsters. We got to fight. Take this sword. It's like, ugh. I love it, but it's just like,
come on.
I should have expected. I should have expected.
But like one little thing about it is like when Raymond is he gets a call from his brother. What's his face? The interactions, like, well, Letitia and Albert, they recognize the ship and they're like, "Oh, is this your ship?" And
and then his like communicator, his basically like mobile phone is like,
what is that? And that's one thing that I became fixated on, because how the fuck does that thing work? Because it looks like a phone. It looks like a Galaxy phone, with an OtterBox case on it, and like he's holding it, and like it creates these screens and stuff that just like project out.
Yeah, it like projects a screen.
And he's talking to his brother that way, but then he's also talking to his brother just a little bit later on, with it up to his face, but also like when it's projecting the screens, it appears like he's on speakerphone or something. So like it's away from him, he's talking at it. Why I don't understand the interaction with the princess. Apparently, Raymond's brother can hear the princess talking, but can't hear Raymond talking. And then Raymond has to ask the princess, "Can I talk to my brother?" You're on speakerphone. Like,
yeah, there's a lot of stuff that just seems like so haphazard. Like, okay, we wrote it down, we planned it out, we acted it, and it really just like we wrote it out. Here's the story, and they didn't have an editor or anybody to go through and be like, okay, well, let's do a continuity check, or let's think logically about this. How is this going to be presented? Oh, well, that's not going to make sense here. We need to change that. It's like, no, they wrote it. It's like, and that's how it is. We don't have time. We don't have the budget to go through and make any sweeping changes.
It's almost like this was just, we're going to do this game in one take, and away we go.
And hopefully it's a good take.
But yeah, so I got fixated on that for a little while, because I was like, I'm hoping this game doesn't really play this dumb.
Oh, no, this game's going to be dumb. This game's going to be dumb.
Yeah.
Because, I will say despite like Raymond just being a doofus and, the setting and the situation, well, I am interested in the setting and situation. It seems like Raymond and his brother seem like they work in a family of merchants or something, transporting cargo. And it kind of seems like the way his brother was talking, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it kind of seems like, okay, there's maybe a life of crime. Like maybe they're not really merchants. Maybe they're criminals. And that would be why the big government organization attacked his ship.
The Eastasiasoft.
But again, maybe I'm reading too much into it. Maybe that's exactly what happens.
And of course, he's Captain Lawrence of the Eastasiasoft. I can't remember the robot or android's name, but
yeah, his love doll. I don't remember her name either.
She basically sacrificed herself for him because she's just a tool and blah blah blah. But ultimately, And
then he had like a 14-year-old girl doing some stuff on the ship too, up in the bridge, and her things lost. So he is set out to look for her, and of course finds these two pair happen upon him on this strange world, and then eventually they allied themselves. Like, hey, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
I remember saying to Corey, because when the ship was being attacked and like was going down, and everyone was rushing to escape pods and stuff, and you've got that like 14-year-old who is just crying and whining and is just like, I don't know what's going on and stuff, like just kind of going back to that one take thing. It's like, I feel like that could probably have been handled better. I also don't like. I get that this is a Japanese game. and the fixation on younger characters, but like seems like this 14-year-old had a pretty important job on the bridge of this ship. And just the interactions between her and the captain doesn't really believe what she's saying, and then they get attacked and blah. Anyway, um, ultimately, like the game was like the demo started to really temper my expectations for the full game, because like you said, the initial trailers and stuff, like everything was showing like, all right, this, obviously not a huge budget, but it seems like this is like we're trying to put Star Ocean back on the map, with the success of Xenoblade and other sci-fi fantasy games out there that, we've got sci-fi fantasy RPGs too.
Well, and so referencing those trailers and kind of what sold me on it, it seemed like, okay, this is going to be a sort of Xenoblade Chronicle style, like big open world to explore. This is just a demo. It's not a full game or anything. It's only like very small, early stage stuff. But it leads me to believe there is not a big open world,
big areas.
Not a major thing. It's fine. Like I said, if it gives me a PS2 RPG, I'm going to be pumped. The areas you do explore in this game, they are very large. But they're very large and with like 2 or 3 exits, basically 2 or 3 pathways to either towns or other dungeons. So very traditional, And even if I think about, like I was trying to think about this, like, well, let me see, what do I want whenever I think of like a Xenoblade open world? Because it's the same thing ultimately. It's just I'm thinking of the first Xenoblade Chronicles, and you get to the Guar Plain, and it's just a massive area, and there's like, it takes you forever to walk from one end to the other, and there's like maybe 20 different entrances and exits, but it basically serves as kind of like a hub where, okay, you're always coming back to here, and then you're venturing over to the northwest this time, or you're going to the southeast. This game still could have that same sort of like hub and spoke design or open world hub area, but as it stands, it's still very large areas, very cool, but it's not much different from a Super Nintendo RPG. A NES RPG is just a big open area with like 2 or 3 exits that are just taking you to the next dungeon, to the next town, to the next dungeon town.
I kind of came away with more of like a Final Fantasy 12 world, because with Final Fantasy 12 it was kind of a similar thing where it's just areas that you go to, and there's 2 or 3 exits for those areas. And so I definitely got more of just like the Final Fantasy 12 world.
So you got more of a PS2 RPG impression from
this game. A very late in life PS2 title, but yeah, like
PS2 nonetheless.
But yeah, like up until a certain point, I was starting to kind of lose that excitement for it. But once my excitement kind of did a slight 180 and started heading back up into the positive territory when you get the Duma, which allows you to like fly and like incorporate it into combat.
And I'd hesitate to say fly, because you just get like short little bursts. That was something that was kind of disappointing. It's like, and maybe I'm sure there'll be upgrades or stuff at the end, or sometime throughout the game. But I mean, you get like a long burst, but you do get a long burst, and then you hover down back to the ground.
That's one thing that I am hoping. Now, granted, this is hoping. As you're going through these areas, you're collecting those Duma crystals and stuff to be able to level up the Duma. And I don't remember. I know Duma is an acronym for something, but I don't know if they actually say what the acronym is. But I'm really hoping that through leveling this thing up, as you play, it unlocks more, like being able to fly farther. Because I know you can expand the scanning, which that was another cool thing.
That was
a lot
helpful.
of the treasure chests blend into the background, which was one issue that I had with the Last Hope. And when I stumbled onto a treasure chest before getting Duma, I was like, oh no.
Well, Well, dang. So come October, it's going to be the
Well,
same thing. You're going to put like 4 or 5 hours into this game and just be like, it sucks. It's awful. I'm never playing it again. I'm going to complain about it, but I'm never
But the
going to play it again.
good thing with Duma is that you can scan, and it not only detects like enemies, but it also detects treasure chests and like collectible things. And then as you level, like you can level up that section of or that ability for Duma. So I'm hoping that it also allows for expanding the range of the bursts to where you start getting more and more of like a flying experience.
Yeah, and kind of in the same way that those Duma crystals are scattered throughout the maps. There's also items and consumables,
Yeah.
crafting materials scattered about, which is very reminiscent of Xenoblade Chronicles. Like that was honestly one of the fun and monotonous things to do as I was going through the environments, being like, oh, looking at all the vistas and fighting enemies, but also like, I'm gonna walk over to the left a little bit so I can pick up that item as I'm going like to whatever destination. It's like I'm gonna go a little out of my way to collect that because it could be something good.
Like kind of going back to Till the End of Time. Till the End of Time had an achievement system built into the game. Revolutionary, if you will. But one of the in-game achievements or trophies that Till the End of Time had was essentially you've got your little mini map, but every area had kind of like a fog of war type of thing where like you had to,
As you walked into the place, you would chart the map and it'd
and
pop
there
up
was
on the mini map.
an in-game trophy for discovering like the entirety of every map you go to. I'm really hoping that, I mean, part of me hopes that there's something here for Divine Force to kind of like, the areas are big.
I think the achievement trophy list for this game may have already been released. I could swear I saw on True Achievements
I'll
that
have to
it had.
definitely look that up because I for Till the End of Time, I loved the game so much that I did actually do that.
In that vein, I was actually looking at the achievement list for The Last Hope because I do want to play that at some point, and it is backwards compatible. I looked at the achievements for it and the walkthrough on True Achievements and like the estimate time, and it's kind of it's put me at ease because it's so crazy. I only have to focus on playing the game and not trying to get all the achievements. To get all the achievements, and probably the same with The Last Hope International on the PS3 to get the platinum, it requires, I think, like 7 playthroughs. The estimated time to complete the achievement trophy list is 650 to 750 hours.
Wow.
So it's like okay, I can feel fine playing this game once, experiencing it, getting like the story related achievements and maybe a few others, and not feeling the pressure to go get the rest. Like it is a relief whenever a game is just like so difficult where it's like, okay, I can just focus on playing the game and enjoying it then. I don't have to worry about the achievements.
And you and I both played Till the End of Time, but I don't know if you remember the in-game trophy system that it had, but it also had just an insane like.
I think I remember you saying, didn't you play it for like 300 hours, or maybe like in one of the guides from back in the day? I remember seeing like 300 hours to get everything.
It's like I said, the game is great. I enjoyed it. It really hit at a perfect time. Like I love sci-fi fantasy RPGs. I love RPGs in general.
And I was a teenager who didn't have a job or a lot of
so I had a
responsibilities.
lot of time that I could sink into this one game.
Here we go, summer vacation.
But yeah, like I remember like the trophy system just having some insane things of like craft this type of weapon and it has like a 0.00001% chance of being crafted, even if you have like everything maxed out or like so yeah, like for the most part going into Divine Force, I'm not like I can already tell you right now, just knowing the games in this series, I'm not going in to to trophy hunt for this game.
And I don't know what the list for integrity and faithlessness is like.
But
I'd be interested to see. Of course,
much
that
shorter.
game, that game looked like, it seemed like looking on how long to beat. That was like 20 to 40 hours or something crazy. So that's probably nowhere near as hard. But this one, who knows? One other thing that kind of turned me on, or like maybe believe, okay, it's not going to have like a big open world or anything, is the fact that there's two protagonists. It looks like there's basically two stories you play as. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is also like a 20-hour game. It's like, okay, you beat Raymond's story in 20 hours. Now go play the other characters in 20 hours. Go play Leticia's side.
And that's another thing
which is fun.
That's another thing that kind of threw me off a little bit with the demo. Is like we know that these are two protagonists, that they both have their own separate stories. So in this demo you get to play as both. You've got Raymond and you've got Leticia that's on the same team. So it kind of makes me wonder, like, is this going to be a situation where their stories they just kind of interconnect at certain points? Like they just maybe they're not together all the time. I'm curious to see how the story actually pans out, because you can play like Raymond has.
Yeah, you can just switch between any characters.
And with them both being protagonists with their own separate stories, but then in the demo you get to play as both. I'm curious to see.
Yeah, or maybe like maybe her story takes place before, like how she got to like up to this point where her and Albert are bumping into Raymond. Like, what are they doing?
And it could be a situation where maybe at some point they're working together. So maybe like the first chapter of the game, you're forced to play as Raymond, and then maybe at the end of the chapter you unlock her story. Not the game Her Story, but Leticia's story.
You had me confused there for a second.
I don't really know how they're necessarily going to play it out, because like I said, they said that this demo is an edited chapter. So it's like, even though it's Raymond's story, it's an edited version of his chapter. So I'm wondering if that also means that some dialogue was cut out, maybe some interactions were cut out, to not. Maybe it has something to do with her story, and that's why because I think on their website they specify that it's an edited chapter. So there's some questions there, but I will say, with the introduction of Duma, another thing to give them credit for, the battles are very seamless, but I had no challenge. There was no challenge whatsoever. I was mowing everything down, and I think I only leveled up a few times. Like maybe at max I got to like level 10 or something. I don't really know.
Yeah, I think I know I leveled up maybe like 5 or 6 times, but after 2 or 3 and actually going through to like the license board sort of thing and applying my experience, I was like, okay, well, I honestly don't need to keep doing this for this demo, and the save doesn't transfer, so it doesn't really matter. At some point, I just kept playing, and it's like, okay, I leveled. I'm not even going to bother going and upgrading my guy, because it's not going to carry forward.
And like, I think there was one group of enemies like right before you get to the final village before the demo ends, where I finally came across just one group of enemies that actually started using like status ailments. So I started having to deal with like poison and stuff.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, okay, that might actually pose it. Never mind, the battle's already over. Okay, well, that's cool.
Yeah. I mean, I liked the combat. It was fast paced. This is an action
seamless.
RPG, and it's the transition of battles is non-existent. It's just you're in this open area. There's on-screen enemies. As soon as you approach them or get close, or they see you, the battle starts. And it's not necessarily a button mashing type of combat. Right. You are just hammering on an attack button, but there are like 3
command buttons or something.
The 3 buttons, there are 3 attack buttons, and you can customize the attack flow. So, okay, if you hold the button or if you press it, you have all these different moves that you can purchase and unlock to put in there or power up. So very interested to see how that plays out.
Cool
But
combo system.
I mean, for the most part, I did just use the light attack
Yeah.
combo and just called it a day. And like you said, it did not ever experience a difficulty, a challenge in this demo.
And one drawback, one thing that I definitely didn't like, the font is really small. That's another, the font.
That's just a pet peeve of, it seems like, ton of
Yeah.
modern games, like all these high definition games. It's been a problem since like the start of the 360 PS3 era. It's like, damn, this font is really small.
I remember back in like 2014, 2015, trying to play Final Fantasy 14 and on console, and the font was just freaking small. And that's playing this game now, playing Star Ocean, at least the demo. Like I said, maybe whenever it releases and they've got that day one patch or whatever, maybe it'll fix some of the stuff, or maybe there's something in the settings to change the font.
No,
but
nope, it won't. Too soon.
But
Too
yeah,
late.
like the font was super small. So like there was one battle where there was just so like the boss, the golem thing. Like I'm attacking the legs and stuff. I'm not really paying too much attention to the center screen. I'm just attacking, and I'm like, I'm not really doing a whole lot of damage to it. This is like shortly after. I think it's after you get Duma. Yeah, it's after you get Duma, because it's all about like targeting and stuff.
Target specific body parts.
Yeah,
of
so
the
I'm
big
like, I'm
enemies.
targeting the legs and stuff. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not really doing a whole lot of damage. And then I finally just like, I'm like, okay, this is going on for a long time. No one's really dying or close to dead, but this also isn't seeming to be doing anything. And I just happened to finally spot, I need to just cycle between the targets and stuff and attack the head, and then the battle was over after like 2 or 3 hits.
I think my experience was identical. It's like, man, this is taking a while. I'm not doing a ton. And then, yeah, same thing. Like, I attack the head like 3 times and then the match is over. Awesome.
And I mean, there's definitely a lot of fodder as well. Whenever you do like get into a certain battles and stuff, like some groups are 3 or 4, but then there's a few that are like 10 to 20.
One thing I wished was the case, and especially when fighting those groups of enemies, is that I wish whenever you locked onto an enemy that the camera would pan as you strafed around the enemy. Instead, the camera just stays locked forward to whatever direction you were looking. So even if you start moving, you then also have to manage the camera with the right analog stick.
Yeah.
That'd be fine if that was default, but if you locked on, I wish at least if you locked on, it followed that enemy, kept that enemy centered.
Just kind of going along with that, when you defeated said enemy, it would be great if it just locked on to another enemy.
Targeted another enemy, yeah.
Kind of in that situation where the camera is just going in the direction that you're running, when you defeat an enemy and you still got other enemies around, you have to then pan the camera around to target something. And so, the battles were fun. There is some cumbersome stuff to it, and I'm hoping. I mean, I don't like. There's probably not going to be very much post-release support for this.
No, I wouldn't think there'd be any changes to that sort of stuff, because I mean, I think like you're saying from the website, like, hey, this is basically the finished game, and they're putting this out so close to release. This is purely just, hey, let's market this, let's get people hyped for it. It's not the sort of thing like, hey, let's get feedback and see if there's anything we need to change.
Yeah. And
one thing I wouldn't necessarily have them change at this point, because I really dug it, and of course it's my sort of thing, is like the character progression and the customization options seem immense. Like that leveling up license board sort of thing, the little like skill tree for each character. It's unique. It's this like hexagonal grid-based things where as you level up, you get the points to put into it. You unlocked this node, and then you can get to the nodes next to it. It seems like that'll take us a long time to get through. You get just stat boosts. You get unlock attacks and stuff like that. And then, of course, with the attacks themselves, you unlock those. You can power those up and customize your specific attacks. Like, it seems like you can spend a ton of time making your characters, your parties different from everyone else's, and really flow to how you play the game.
At least I'm hoping, because I kind of like, as I was playing, I did spend a lot of points on the skill tree stuff, or the kind of like license board thing. I'm really wondering like how they're gonna balance that out, because like I said, I probably got to like maybe level 10. I had generated a pretty good amount, and for each character, by the time that the demo ended, I had already like activated I think 5 or 6 hexagons each for the characters. So I'm really kind of going back into the just how long is this game. And maybe with the demo, maybe with it being edited, maybe they were handing out more points than the game actually will. Who knows? But I feel like I was making pretty quick progress on the skill trees. So I'm wondering, does it expand a little bit further on, or is this really just all you have? And if it's all you have, like I said, I was making pretty quick work of it.
Yeah, and it may be pretty quick, and these games, at least since 3, I don't remember about the first 2. The ports on the PSP are of course 4 or 5, but New Game Plus was a thing. Of course, if you max out that skill tree from the first playthrough, what are you going to do on the second playthrough?
Unless New Game Plus, if it has it, then maybe it unlocks more of the skill tree, or maybe it expands Duma a little bit, But another thing that was kind of jarring, the soundtrack. When you were going through the ruins, it was basically a 4 or 5 note repeating, just looping track of just dun 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 dun, and I just could not be more ready to finish the ruins, because of just how like the music in the background was driving me crazy.
I don't remember that. This is composed by longtime Tales of and Star Ocean
Illuminary
Star Ocean composer Motoi Sakuraba, and he's the sort of guy who I like his work, but I don't really like listening to them outside of the game.
It's no Sonic soundtrack.
But this one, like the battle themes, like whenever a battle started up, it did get me pumped. Like, okay, this is awesome. This is rocking. But I have no recollection of that one dungeon song being that monotonous. So maybe I dug it, or maybe it was just like a non-issue for me.
Maybe maybe you got into the dungeon and you maybe just instinctively your brain was like, nope, shutting that off. So maybe you just didn't register. But I would say it's just kind of a little bit of a challenge for you, just to, for the next episode, just boot up the demo again, get into the ruins, and just listen to that soundtrack. But yeah, the battle theme I thought was great. It was very high octane. It was like it fit the flying into battle, the blind sides and surprise attacks. Like it really fit the fights. I just wish the fights had a little more challenge to them, to where maybe the theme lasted a little bit longer. But overall,
all in all, it met my expectations in some places, it exceeded my expectations in some place, and didn't meet my expectations in others. But all in all, I'm still excited for it. I'm interested to play it. I have standards that cannot be translated to maybe like the general gameplay in public, because like I said, if this comes out and it's just a PS2 ass JRPG, like I'm in hog heaven. And
like you and I think are kind of on the same wavelength. Like graphics are great, but I think we've reached a point where I really don't like. I think graphics are causing games to really slow development down. Um, like, I don't need to see every pore on a character's face. I don't need to see every wrinkle when the face, with expressions and stuff. Um, Give me great gameplay, give me a great story, um, and I'm good. So like
So on those barometers, great gameplay and great story. How'd this demo fare?
it would
Is that a 0 out of 2 or a 1 out
it
of
would be
2?
a 1 out of 2. Graphics, not the best, but the gameplay.
Now, and to be fair, you did play on graphics section, so you say that you don't care about graphics, but given the option, you chose graphics.
I wanted to see how because in the settings it says that graphics would cause performance to take a hit, and then obviously in performance, frame rate mode, performance would be the focal point, so graphics would take a hit. So I was kind of wanting to see just how they both fared, and really I honestly did not see a difference. I felt like the same issues popped up in both modes, especially when you got into that area right before the mining village, with the like tall grass and stuff. Like, as I'm flying through and like trying to get the camera to line up with things, the game would get choppy and just kind of
and maybe that's a case where it was kind of the same on both performance and visual for you, being that you are playing on the Series X and PS5. Maybe because those settings are definitely something more for like the Xbox One X or the PS4 Pro. It's like, hey, these were like the step-up consoles that could actually do some damage compared to what the normal consoles could do, versus us, playing on like actual next-gen hardware. It's probably the case where, okay, you guys are really getting both anyways, but we still have to have that option in there. Whereas maybe if we were just playing this on like a standard like PS4 or Xbox One X, we would actually see an improvement between performance and, and visual.
So do you have with the 3 characters that are introduced in the demo?
Well, there's more than 3 characters introduced in the demo.
Playable characters introduced. So, of the 3 that you get to play as, who would you say is your favorite?
Well, I only ever played as Raymond. Like, I switched him once just to do the little tutorial thing. I was like, okay, I'm just hopping back to Raymond. I think this is the last note I had, and it was maybe the first thing I thought of playing the demos. It's got to be the combination of his hair and his body type, and definitely in combination with the way he talks or his dialogue, just the way he acts. He's just dumb. His face strikes me as dumb. It's just something weird about the way he looks. And again, it could be the hair in combination with his face, but it's all, I don't know if it's just scrunched up or what.
It seems like it's flat.
I just don't like the way he looks.
It's like his head was smushed, but then he's got all this hair everywhere. But I also kind of pointed this out when Corey was watching me play the demo. What is it with Japanese creations, whether games or anime, manga, whatever, and weirdly placed scars?
Oh yeah, he had a couple
on his right arm. He had this weird like X scar like above his elbow, but then he also had like another scar like right below it or like right above like, and then I think he had like a scar on it. No, I don't think he had a scar on his face.
Yeah, the ones on his arm definitely caught my eye. I was like, okay, I think thought the same sort of thing as you. That's a weird place for scars, or at least for pronounced scars in the same way like you're doing a custom character customization.
Presumably, he's a captain of a spaceship, so not exactly a lot of opportunities to get slashed by a sword.
Well, again, you don't know where
Yeah.
this came from, and again, what his duties as captain of this starship do. It's not like he's like Jean-Luc Picard on the Starship Enterprise, where he's not going out on the
Yeah.
planets often. He's operating a merchant thing that could be a
Yeah.
crime organization. Who knows?
But ultimately, th- just kind of based on the demo, you know,
I mean, I'm getting the game still. I'm
yeah,
gonna play it day
like,
one still.
there's
I'll look forward to
there's
it.
there's
Looking
still
forward to
good
it.
things that I'm looking forward to. Like I said, the introduction of Duma really, I had a lot of fun using Duma to like surprise attack groups of enemies. Because when you surprise attack enemies, then they're just frozen there for a little bit, so you can then just wail on them, and then the battles already don't take a whole lot of time. But when they're surprised and they can't do anything, and you just mow through them, it's even quicker. Um, and then yeah, just kind of playing around and kind of getting more of a feel for the like burst flying and that kind of stuff. Um, I think I could probably get over the cringy animations or the interactions between the characters. Um, and I mean, it seems like it has the potential to be a meaty RPG with like the crafting and stuff like and skill tree system and all the passive skills and stuff. So I mean, I'm still with you as far as like getting it day one. Like I'm definitely getting it day one. I'm just also now kind of tempering expectations a little bit so that I'm not completely disappointed if it doesn't expand the skill trees or if Duma doesn't gain the ability to expand the range of flight. Um,
Yeah, just based on the demo, like I could already see myself thinking this game is like in the 7 to 8 out of
yeah.
10 range, and maybe like the game review in public, viewing this game as like a 5
Yeah.
to a 7.
Um,
So, I mean, I'm fine with it. Like I said, 7 to 8 for me, at least just based on this like 2 hour
Yeah.
demo. That's
and
solid.
I don't know if you had the same reaction, but I kind of feel like the demo ended in a very weird way. It just kind of like abruptly stops. Um,
It ended on like a little
I mean, I guess so. Just the like getting bumping into the person leaving the inn. But yeah, like
Yeah, but that character, obviously knowing like who Leticia and Albert were, of
Yeah.
course they're, she's a princess, but she's wandering around this place and nobody's like, oh, hey, there's the
And-
princess. What's she doing here? So there's something afoot. And of course it looked like this person recognized who they
yeah.
were.
So I'm like I said, still
But-
getting it day one. I'm still pumped for it because the combat is like fun. Like I had no issues really with the combat outside of I'm hoping that there's more of a challenge, and obviously as the game progresses, I'm sure enemies will get more challenging. At least I'm hoping. Fingers crossed. I'm not really looking for a my first RPG experience type of game. But
Okay, well, you said you had a kudos
yes,
to hand out.
So as was mentioned earlier in the episode, I've got to give kudos to Microsoft, because they make it so simple and just so user friendly to play games no matter what the region is. The fact that I can go to my Series X, go into the settings, and say, well, now I'm in New Zealand. And the system's just like, oh, let's do a quick restart. And yep, you're now in New Zealand. Here's the Microsoft store that your New Zealanders get access to. Versus the PlayStation 5, where I would have to create a completely new profile and it be locked to that region. Because you can't just go into the settings and say, hey, I'm in New Zealand now. So just giving a kudos to Microsoft for making things so gosh darn simple and easy. Now, granted, in a situation like this, if I wasn't so eager to test out Star Ocean, I probably could have just waited the 24 hours. But just the fact that I could go into my settings and just within maybe 30 seconds tops, be able to go from the United States to New Zealand, go to the Microsoft Store, start downloading the demo, and play the demo. And not only that, I was able to download the demo as it's downloading, switch back to the United States, and it just keeps downloading. Like, it's just that simple.
It's very nice. Very nice.
And yeah, like with my PS4, my PS5, I've got so many like different profiles that are only used every once in a while for certain things, whether it's like the Germany store, the Japanese store, or whatever. So yeah, just that realization that I can just quickly change the setting to now I'm here instead of there, and I've got access to everything that region has access to. Just, yeah, kudos to Microsoft for making things so simple. I think for the most part, after, now that the Star Ocean demo is done, I'm probably just going to power through, finish Killzone Shadowfall, get that completely cleared out, not worry about the trophies, since I'll have a little bit of free time after recording. And then I've got Like a Dragon sitting to the side to dive into that, to hopefully wrap that up before the Divine Force comes out. But do you have anything that you are really going to be focusing on over the next week?
No, I will put some more time into Strania, that shoot 'em up. I'll probably actually play some more Null Drifter, just because I think that's a really good game. But as far as like something to focus on, I am really getting an RPG itch, so I may fire up some RPG and like same with you and Like a Dragon, like get that beat before Star Ocean comes out. Maybe it'll be Ni no Kuni. Got that down on the console.
I would definitely enjoy having that conversation. I mean, I haven't touched the game in like 10 years, but I did go back and pull some footage from the review that I did for All Your Show way back in the day, for the recent game revision that went out. I was so much younger and I just seemed to be enjoying life more. I don't know. I wasn't as jaded. Time.
Well, on that note.
So, this has been episode 11 of Just One More Podcast. I am Jeff from Just One More Level.
And I was John from iBurnOnGames.com.
And we will be back with another episode next week. See ya, everybody.
Bye-bye. Uh-oh, we lost Jeff. I bored Jeff. Or did we lose me? Oh no, we lost me. Well, I'm going to keep talking as if I did not get lost. Let's see. I just heard Discord flash. Does that mean my internet is coming back? My computer says it is connecting. Boy, what happened? Okay, let me see if it can see my other network. Let's turn Wi-Fi off, turn it back on. Uh-oh. I don't see any networks. I mean, I see networks, but they're not mine. I see the CIA van. That's secured though, so I can't connect. I don't know the password to the CIA van. Yeah, and my phone is not showing a connection either. Well, I guess I'm going to go ahead and pop out of here see if I can see what's going on. And I am continuing to procrastinate as I toggle some stuff on my computer, but to no avail. Oh, wait. It's coming back. Maybe I see the network. No internet secured. So maybe it will actually connect here once it kind of gets back up to speed. Well, this is going to be an interesting podcast. I will be interested to see how Jeff puts this together. Hopefully he kept his audio going the whole time too. Well, this is kind of a bummer. I was looking forward to talking about the Star Ocean demo. I think I downloaded that. Let's see, that went live on Monday in New Zealand, so I actually changed my console's region to download that early, so I did actually play that on Monday. And we have not talked about it since, really. Okay, there we go. Internet's back. So let me fire up Discord. Connection problems, let us know. Well, unfortunately, the connection problems are not on your side, Discord. They're on mine. Okay, Jeff's texting me. Let me go and reply to him. Trying to get back on. Okay, there we go. I'm back on. All right, you're there. Did you keep your audio track going, or did you stop it? No, I've kept my audio track going the whole time. Well, I'll be like I said in my audio track at some point. I was just like, okay, I guess I bored Jeff. Jeff, are you there? Jeff? And then it's like, oh wait, no, I did lose internet. I do see you texting me. And so I just kept my audio track going the whole time, and I even said, like, talking to the audience, well, this will be interesting to see how Jeff edits this episode, and I hope he kept his audio track going, and I guess you did not, but you'll work your editing magic when this episode releases, and we'll be none the wiser.